Okay, so real talk. We all start somewhere with macrame, and that somewhere usually includes a few not so great habits that we don't even realize we are doing. So today I'm going to share with you 5 bad habits to break if you want smoother knots, cleaner finishes, and way less frustration. And with that, let's jump right in. Okay, so not all cord is created equal. Using the wrong type of cord, like if it's too fuzzy, it's too flimsy, or too slippery, may mess up your knots and make it a little bit harder than it needs to be. There's many different types of cords and fibers out there. When I started macrame approximately 6 years ago, I just went to my local craft store at Michael's and chose some hemp cord that I think was about 1 millimeter to 2 millimeter in diameter. And I made a few keychains with this string. And I'll put these on the screen for you guys to see. These are my first few projects. To be frank, it was difficult to work with, but it wasn't impossible. It was a little stiff, so it was hard to work with that way. I know you might also be tempted to use knitting yarn because who doesn't have knitting yarn at home? So you might be a little keen on trying it for macrame. However, yarn is too flimsy, it really has no structure to it, so it's going to make it very difficult to work with for macrame. And especially because it does puff up a lot, so if you make super tight knots, the knots are going to be impossible to untie. The cord that you do want to use for macrame is cotton cord. So whether that is recycled cotton, natural organic cotton, mixed cotton with other fibers like polyester or whatnot, cotton or cotton mix is the way to go. If you want the cord to fringe out nicely, then choose to use single strand. If you want it to be a little bit more structure, hold shape with your knots, then I would recommend opting for 3-ply or braided. 3-ply you could still fringe out with a nice crimped look, but if you do want to fringe out your ends, don't use braided. Stick with quality cord designed for macrame, single strand for a soft, smooth texture, or 3-ply and braided for more definition. The next bad habit is choosing the wrong size cord for your project. Are you using 5mm cord for a tiny keychain, or perhaps you want to use 1.5mm string for a wall hanging? Both of these are not really ideal. If you're following a tutorial, it will usually list the size of the cord and the cord lengths that they used in the pattern itself. And if you follow that using the same size cord and the same cord lengths, generally you wouldn't have any issues. If, say, the project calls for 3mm and you decide that you want to use 4mm, or you only have 4mm on hand at that time and you do want to make it, this is when some issues will arise because changes need to be made in order for you to be able to use 4mm cord for that same project. So if you're following that project and you are using a thicker cord, you're going to need to add more cord lengths to the one suggested in the pattern. Now, because 4mm is about 25% thicker than 3mm, I recommend increasing the stated cord lengths by at least 25%. Usually, I opt for a little bit more just in case. So I would go 25 to 30%, usually rounding it to the 30% higher end of the range. Now, this also works similarly if you're going from a 4mm project tutorial to using 3mm for that same project. Instead of adding 25 to 30%, you would deduct 25 to 30%. Another issue with cord sizing you may encounter is that some brands, even though their stated thickness is 3mm, some will be a little bit thinner, some will be a little bit thicker than others. The 3mm cord that you have on hand may be slightly thicker than the 3mm in the pattern tutorial you are watching. So sometimes you may not get the perfect match and you may end up with quite a big difference. Most of the time it should be okay following the tutorial, but I do err on the side of caution, so I do add a bit more cord lengths if I am following a tutorial, just in case. If you are designing your own macrame, typically I would recommend using 4mm or 5mm for a large scale wall hanging, or if you're making really intricate knot work and you want that to show, then use 3mm. For micro macrame like jewelry or small intricate keychains, I'd recommend using 1 to 2mm string for that. Typically for the majority of projects, 3mm or 4mm are the perfect size. But typically for a lot of the regular macrame projects you see, 3mm or 4mm are the perfect size. Choose cord sizes that match your project scale so that your knots don't look out of place and you don't waste time and cord. The next one is cutting cord one strand at a time. If you are still cutting cord one strand at a time, we need to talk. Save yourself time by measuring once, folding it over, and then cutting twice. Your brain and your hands will thank you. So say you need 20 strands of 200cm long cords. All you need to do is measure once the 200cm from the end, the start of the cord to the end, and then fold that over to match the ends together. And you technically have 2 strands there. So then keep folding it over length by length until you have 10 strands in the middle. Then you should have a lot of loops at the ends that you need to cut. So once you have the 20 strands in the middle, then you can cut once on the right and cut once on the left. Trust me, this will save you so much time than cutting it one strand at a time. And that leads into our next one about bad posture and setup. Macrame is supposed to be relaxing. That is one of the main reasons why I got into it. But if you are straining your neck, hunching down, you are going to feel it. So get a comfy chair, adjust to your appropriate working height, make sure everything is ergonomic, and let your shoulders relax and chill. I like making the majority of my projects sitting down on a desk so that I am sitting upright with a comfortable chair, keeping my back straight and my shoulders relaxed. Now, while some projects you can do sitting on a couch watching TV, like say a bag pattern that doesn't need to be strapped down on a table to work from, you may start off the project that way, but partway through you can just sit, watch TV on the couch and finish the rest of it. While that is the case for some projects, it is not the case for many projects, like a wall hanging, which you need to see sometimes hung up vertically to see how the progress is going. So what I like to do for the majority of my projects is to sit down on a chair at a desk and work on it horizontally on a flat, stable surface. Now, a lot of times if you're making larger projects, desks may not work for that, so a clothing rack working vertically and adjusting it to your proper height is necessary and also works well too. Don't let bad posture and a bad setup get in the way of making something that is relaxing to you. And last but not least, not paying attention to tension. Not paying attention to tension. Tension is everything in macrame. It also takes time and practice, however. Too loose and your project may end up looking wonky. Too tight, it may be very difficult to adjust. Practice pulling on each knot so that you get the same amount of firmness. It makes a huge difference in the final look. I spend a lot of time with my macrame projects because I like to pretty much adjust every knot, or at least every few knots as I make them. For square knots in particular, after I'm done making the knot, I pull on the anchor cords to make sure there's no scrunched up cords, and then I re-tighten the working cords again just to make sure that after I pulled on the anchor cords, there might be a little bit of space now, so I re-tighten the working cords again. Now for double half-hitch knots, you can really see when a row of double half-hitch knots are not straight or not neat. So I do pay attention to making almost every double half-hitch knot while I'm making the double half-hitch knots. So I make sure I pay attention to every half-hitch knot I make to make sure that the half-hitch knots match together for a double half hitch knot. Then after every few double half hitch knots, like 2 to 4 double half hitch knots, I pull on the anchor cord to tighten up the double half hitch knots, pushing them together. This really does do a lot of the magic in straightening out your double half hitch knots, getting rid of any unevenness so that it looks nice and clean. So I definitely recommend following those steps to get nice, neat double half hitch knots. Now this may seem like a lot of added time, but over time with the practice, it does get a little quicker, and at the end, there's less adjusting needed because you have a nice, clean looking macrame project. And that's a wrap with our 5 bad habits to cut when it comes to macrame. We've all been there, trust me. The good news, these habits are easy to break. And once you do, your macrame will be nicer, neater, and a lot more fun. Want help choosing the right cord, tools, or setup? I've got you covered. Head on over to BOCHIKNOT.com for maker-loved supplies made just for you. We've also got free guides that will help you on every step of your macrame journey, so make sure you check that out there as well. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time.